But the purpose of today's show, more than anything else, is just to explain to everybody like how far ahead you are right now. I know we kind of get caught up in our own Bitcoin ecosystem here, and we start comparing each other, how long this person's been in Bitcoin, how much Bitcoin this person has, how much this person knows, how many conferences this person has been to. We're all guilty of it. But I think we just kind of need to step back and understand how early we are. I know everybody says we're early, but we're like, when you live in this world, like every single hour of my day is spent like in Bitcoin, talking to people about it, watching things, listening to things. I just don't think people really comprehend how early we are right now. And a couple of examples of this. The first one that I wanted to share is that I shared a video, one of the clips from the other day, talking about Bitcoin security, talking about plugging in a device into a laptop and kind of the issues that I see with that, or the fact that I don't really understand if there are issues there. So then I don't trust it. But there's a couple comments in there. And one of the comments was like something along the lines of, I didn't know there was any other way to store Bitcoin other than plugging it into a laptop. Like essentially, I didn't know that the air gapped method existed. So just think about that. Like here, I'll speak for myself. I kind of like have this expectation that everybody just kind of knows what I know. But even with that, like, so that's some person there on YouTube looking at Bitcoin stuff. Their algorithm has clearly picked up on the fact that they're into Bitcoin. So they're showing them Bitcoin clips on YouTube. And so that's what this person is. They're a Bitcoiner. They're interested in Bitcoin, but they've never heard of air gapping. That's the gap that I'm talking about here. So just number one, don't underestimate how much the knowledge that you have within Bitcoin is worth. And don't take for granted like where we are right now. That was one example of a comment. I saw 2 or 3 this morning. I forget what they were talking about, but it was just more indication of just how early we are, where even people who own Bitcoin, even people who consume Bitcoin content are like not even at the start line yet in terms of like an understanding of Bitcoin. So I don't claim to be an expert on any subject within Bitcoin. I don't think that there are any Bitcoin experts out there, but you still have to understand that if you have even a decent understanding of Bitcoin right now, you're like 1 in 100 million. Maybe not that. 1 in a million though. If you have any sort of understanding past, the very basics of Bitcoin, you're like 1 in a million. And so then you apply that to like the ownership of Bitcoin then, and you say like, we see transactions right now. We send transactions that might be 50,000 sats, 100,000 sats, 200,000 sats. And we don't really think too much of it right now because we've kind of seen it progress to this point. But like in 10 or 20 years from now, if you're sending 100,000 sats around or 200,000 sats around, like you're going to be in a very, very small group of people who are able to do that. So just don't take for granted how early we are here. Don't ever get discouraged at all. And that's kind of the song that I played today. It was like, just understand that everybody wants more, but you have to appreciate what you have right now. So that's kind of the main message for today's show. I really want people to understand how early we are in terms of ownership and in terms of knowledge, and how valuable both those things are going to be in the future. We're 16 years into this thing that's probably going to be here for a couple thousand years. And people are going to say that we're lucky that we're here right now. And we are. I see a lot of people saying like, well, we're not lucky. We put in the work to get here. Yeah, we have, but we were born during this time. Think about somebody who was born 100 years before this. They'll never live in a world like we get to live in right now. Think about somebody who's going to be born 100 years from now. They're never going to get the opportunity to buy this amount of sats, not even close to it. Like think about in 100 years from now, think about how much one sat is going to cost. If we think that like within 10 or 15 or 20 years, whatever, however long it takes to get from like 1 sat equals $1, think about where we go from there. Think about as the mining rewards dry up even further every 4 years, how scarce and how valuable those sats are going to be. So whenever you're thinking about this stuff, just like chill, because it's very easy to get caught up in like always just wanting more and kind of working yourself to the bone, which I kind of like tell people to do here. Like, understand where we are and try to get as much as you can, but never like put too much stress on yourself. Just understand that if you're in Bitcoin right now and you have that Bitcoin well protected, you and your family are going to be, I wouldn't say untouchable. I would say that actually, I'm going to say untouchable. If you have Bitcoin now and you keep that Bitcoin safe, you and your family are going to be untouchable in the future, and you're never going to have to worry about money again. And so don't get caught up in like the day-to-day bullshit. Don't get caught up in like the bills and the expenses and all that stuff. Like it's all irrelevant in the grand scheme of things here. Bitcoin's the only thing that matters today, and it's absolutely the only thing that's going to matter in a decade from now. Nobody's going to care when you're sitting around with your grandkids in a decade or two from now or more, they're not going to care how many rental homes you have. They're not going to care how much gold you have. They're not going to care certainly won't care how much XRP you have. The one thing they're going to care about is how much Bitcoin you got during this time. That's it. And so if you have any, understand how far ahead you are of everybody else. And if we think about like the 1 million sats of like the target that everybody should try to get to, that's kind of how I see it right now. Everybody should try to get to at least 1 million sats. If you can do that, your family's going to be set forever. If you can protect that million sats, your family's going to be set forever. But think about like, that's somebody who's going to be set up financially forever. Think about how many people aren't going to even get that. Probably there's going to be a lot of people who don't even get a fraction of that. So just, appreciate yourself. Thank yourself for taking the time to learn this, but never get discouraged about how much time you've been in Bitcoin and how much sats you have. Just a complete waste of time. Focus your energy instead on obviously getting more, but also protecting that Bitcoin that you have. Because you can have as much Bitcoin as you want right now. That's another part of this too. There's going to be a lot of people who have a lot of Bitcoin right now, but because they kind of skipped over the security aspect of it and the inheritance aspect of it, it's not going to mean anything. It's exactly like building a house. You build a house, you get a really solid foundation. That house is going to stand there for hundreds of years. If you have a solid foundation, you can build whatever you want on top of that. You can stack whatever you want on top of that. But when your foundation sucks, when you don't worry about your security, your inheritance stuff, you could stack as much on top of that as you want. You could build the most beautiful house in the world, but unless it has a good foundation, it's going to fall. It's going to be lost. It's going to blow over. So that's why we're here. We're doing it, baby. We are doing it.